Now we can get into this. The Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes, The Hound of the Baskervilles, and the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. Many years ago, during an art money laundering investigation, I borrowed or perhaps invented a most remarkable identity, Miss Celia Watson. Yeah. A distant cousin of the well-regarded Dr. Joan Watson. Dr. Joan. Dr. John Watson. I don't know where Joan came from. With Dr. Watson absent from London for just a few short days, I seized the opportunity to visit 221B Baker Street and consult the famous detective Sherlock Holmes. Ooh. Oh, am I gonna... Okay. Be right back. A case from Helen Stoner. Her sister Julia died under mysterious circumstances the night before her wedding. Julia's last words were speckled band, a phrase that has haunted Helen as she approaches her own nuptials? 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 I don't even know. Plagued by unsettling noises that fill her with dread. Ah. The Adventures of the Speckled Band was first published in the Strand magazine in 1892 and later included in the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. It is widely regarded as one of the finest short stories in the Sherlock Holmes series, cherished by readers and critics alike. Villainess. London tour. Oh, let's do the case investigation actually. Many years ago, during an art money laundering investigation, famous detective. Yes, okay, we already read that. I tapped lightly on the door, which was answered by a dignified lady of advanced years who introduced herself as the landlady. Upon hearing my intention, she welcomed me courteously and led me into the living room. The fireplace burned low, whether through the owner's deliberate choice or a slight lapse in attention, its embers barely stoking enough warmth to dispel the lingering chill in the air, leaving the room less inviting than I had hoped. A carefully tended deerstalker hat. An old violin coated in a thin veil of rosin, indicating frequent use. A laboratory table set with test tubes and other experimental apparatus. Oh, are you fond of music as well? Tall and slender, a pair of sharp, perceptive eyes. He exuded an air of keen intelligence and vitality. I dabble. Without further discussion, he moved to a nearby armchair, setting his pipe down on the side table. Mr. Sherlock Holmes, I presume? My name is Celia Watson, a distant relative of Dr. John Watson. It's a pleasure to meet you. The pleasure is mine, Miss Watson. Holmes took a brief but thorough look before gesturing to another chair for me to sit. With Watson away on an errand outside the city, I need urgent assistance with a case at Bevel Manor. If you don't mind, I would appreciate your company. Are you referring to the Cursed Manor? I see you've heard the rumors, but the curse isn't tied to the manor itself. It stems from a painting, Wrath of Cerberus. I was under the impression that the police classified the case as a misadventure. The truth is, many doubts remain unresolved. Just then, a girl in a boyish outfit entered, pushing the door open. Oh! Mr. Holmes, the carriage you requested has arrived. I've placed the items you wanted inside. Wiggins, will you be handling the carriage today? The girl, Wiggins, nodded and then turned her gaze towards me. Who are you? A relative of Dr. Watson's. Perhaps it was my imagination, but her lips seemed to curl into a knowing smile. Hello, Wiggins. You can call me Celia. Hello, Celia. Wiggins appeared spirited and full of energy. Before she left, she waved at me and went about her preparations. Very well, Miss Watson. For more detailed accounts of the case, you may refer to the journal on the side table. They were notes John recorded on the matter. At the very least, it shall render this somewhat lengthy journey a little more entertaining. With that, Holmes rose and exited the room. I quickly grabbed the journal from the side table and followed him. Once we were in the carriage, I began to review the case notes written by my cousin. Dr. John Watson's journal. The long rain finally gave way to a rare sunny day in London. I allowed myself the luxury of a lie-in and didn't come downstairs until noon. There I found Holmes in his usual seat, absorbed in an art book, one of his many disclosed hobbies. On the day of the visit with the client. Oh. Chapter 1, New Commission. The long rain finally gave way to a rare sunny day in London. I allowed myself the luxury blah blah blah. Okay. Why is it making me reread stuff? The long rain finally gave way to a rare sunny day, and I allowed myself the luxury of a lie-in and didn't come downstairs until noon. There I found Holmes in his usual seat, absorbed in an art book, one of his many undisclosed hobbies. I literally read that almost 3 times. I read it like 2.5 times. I'm afraid, Watson, painting is not an art I am well versed in, nor am I involved in the commerce of art. I had grown accustomed to his uncanny ability to read my thoughts, so I simply nodded and settled into another chair. It was then that I realized the book was a catalogue from an art gallery by the name of Bevel. Bevel? Bevel? Bevel. That name sounds strangely familiar. I recall now the art collector who met an untimely death. I read about it in the newspaper, along with the rumors of a family curse that has been whispered for years. Indeed, the very newspaper on the side table. Oh. Ethan Bevel tragically fell to his death at his mansion not long ago, and the cause of death is still under investigations by the authorities. The most renowned piece in the Bevel Gallery is Wrath of Cerberus. The curse surrounding it has gained even more attention following Mr. Bevel's death. Ethan Bevel was a wealthy collector and artist. He had a strong passion for acquiring paintings from young artists, transforming half of his family estate into a gallery. The painting is rumored to depict a hellhound staring directly at the guilty, and those who possess it are doomed to die under strange circumstances. Naturally, this tale only fed the public's morbid curiosity, making Wrath of Cerberus the crown jewel of Bevel's gallery, with many biddings vast amounts for it. Biddings. Could Bevel's death be connected to his collection? He tapped really fast. Perhaps deduction is not your strongest suit, John, but your intuition never fails to amaze me. Yes, I had just escorted the butler from Bevel Manor before you came down. He remarked that fear had gripped the manor, and people were convinced that Mr. Bevel's demise was due to the curse. Nevertheless, Bevel was once a staunch materialist. He would never have believed in curses. A year ago, as the painting appreciated in value, he even built a dedicated exhibit hall for it. Once? Indeed, 6 months ago, as his health deteriorated, he began to believe in the curse. and just a week ago his body was found in that exhibit hall, his expression one of sheer horror. So now they believe the curse has finally struck? Correct, but the butler rejects this notion, which is why he has turned to us for help. And of course, you'll never pass up an opportunity to take on such a challenging case. Come, Watson, gather your belongings. Roadworks in Watford have blocked the way, so we'll need to take a considerable detour to reach Bevel Manor. We? Naturally, Watson, you may not shine by yourself, but you are a conduit for light, capable of stirring inspiration. Believe me, you must not downplay your strengths. Chapter 2, The Cursed Manor. Bevel borders a large swamp on the far northeastern outskirts of London, making access to it far from easy. On the one hand, it's hard to fathom anyone constructing a gallery in such an isolated location, but on the other, its cold and mysterious ambience only seemed to add to the rumors of its curse. Mr. Laverne, the estate's butler, was thrilled at our arrival and took it upon himself to escort us to the reception room. Artwork on display all around. Elegant and tasteful furnishing. Paintings in progress. No sooner had we settled in than a maid served us exquisite refreshments. The butler introduced her as Dahlia, the maid who had first discovered Mr. Bevel after the incident. Oh! Wow, they really did you dirty, disciple. No, I'm kidding. You actually look really good. Pleased to meet you all. I am Dahlia, the maid who served Mr. Bevel. Though she appeared youthful, there was a somberness to her presence. Her clothing bore smudges and wrinkles, likely a result of the unexpected tragedy that had understandably caused her to neglect her appearance. What led you to discover that something had happened to Mr. Bevel? Every morning at 9 I brought Mr. Bevel his breakfast, but on that day he was missing from his suit. It wasn't unusual, though. He had been staying in the exhibit hall all night for the past few days, so I went to find him, and then I saw... As she recalled the chilling scene, Miss Dahlia's voice wavered with unease. Oh, hi, Aesop. Mr. Bevel's untimely passing had a profound effect on her. With no children of his own, he often remarked that Dahlia bore a striking resemblance to his late niece, with whom he had been very close. If you wish for more detailed accounts of the incident, feel free to follow me to the exhibit hall. The police are there. They conducted a full investigation yesterday and have returned today. I couldn't help but feel surprised. Scotland Yard isn't known for this degree of diligence. It appears the man handling this case is none other than our old friend, Watson. We followed Laverne to the Chamber of Curses, a detached two-story structure at the side wing of the main house. Hello, Jose. Inspector G. Lestrade. Been a while, hasn't it, Holmes? Dr. Watson. It's been some time, Inspector Lestrade. I forget how to pronounce his name. I'm sorry. Carefully tended facial hair. Alert eyes resembled those of a bulldog. Slightly gaunt. Smart police uniform. Oh, hi, Edgar. Apart from our old friend Inspector Lestrade, another individual was present when we arrived. As introduced by Mr. Laverne, the gallery's manager, Mr. Clovis. A trace of concern on his face. Fashionably dressed. Remarkably young. Dry hands that bore cracks in the skin. Pleased to meet you. I'm Clovis. I oversee the management of Mr. Bevel's gallery and the sale of his paintings. Mr. Clovis is here today to handle matters related to the upcoming exhibit and sale of Wrath of Cerberus. Haven't you all considered this painting cursed, yet you still plan to exhibit it? Inspector Lestrade appeared to have his reservations about this. While the evidence collection had concluded, it was hard to understand why items from a murder scene would be put on sale. My collaboration with Mr. Bevel spawned many years, built on mutual trust and a strong bond. I respected him greatly, and his passing has caused me great sorrow. However, the invitations for the exhibition, oh my god, exhibit have already been sent out. The secret buyers from all over have placed their bids. Mr. Bevel had been eagerly awaiting this moment. My brain does not want to say that word today. Were he watching from above, Mr. Bevel would undoubtedly wish for this grand event to proceed as planned. Edgar, you need to chill out, bro. Besides, a cursed painting that has already claimed a life would only fetch a higher price at auction, would it not, Mr. Clovis? Holmes' candid remark caused a slight flush of embarrassment on Mr. Clovis's face, while Inspector Lestrade snorted in response but agreed nonetheless. Well, it seems we've wrapped up the investigation for now. There doesn't appear to be anything amiss. Accidental deaths seem to the most reasonable conclusion. As for the ghost stories, you must place your faith in this detective here. With that, Inspector Lestrade called to the officers around him, signaling it was time to conclude the investigation. One moment, Inspector. Before you depart, I would like to examine the autopsy and the investigation reports. Despite his apparent impatience, the solid foundation of our past work together led Inspector Lestrade to hand over the report. Holmes wasted no time flipping through the documents. Mr. Clovis, Mr. Laverne, Miss Dahlia, can you account for your whereabouts at 2 a.m. on the 11th of February? I spent the 10th and the 11th of February in the city working on preparations for the exhibition. My business partners can attest to that. I was in Mr. Bevel's bedroom. To clarify, the only ones with keys to this room aside from the Mr. Bevel himself were Miss Dahlia and Mr. Clovis. They were the only ones who had entered. I went to the city on February 10th to visit a relative, a magician. His circus was in town for a show and I didn't return until the next morning. Sherlock nodded, closed the reports, and handed them to me. Holy crap. Oh, he was 62. Age of the deceased, 62. Words are failing me today. Time of death, 2 a.m. on February 11th. This means the three related persons have irrefutable alibis. Cause of death, blunt trauma to the back of the head. The injuries align with those sustained from falling downstairs. External examination, multiple fractures and contusions at various stages of healing. Medical history, recent reports of a skin condition linked to an acute allergic reaction. There were records of heart disease and a fibula fracture within the past year. On the surface, these appear to be characteristics of an elderly person with poor health falling down the stairs, but my cohabitant's expressions indicated he believed otherwise. The exhibition hall is especially designed for Wrath of Cerberus. It has no windows or ventilations, openings for privacy and theft preventions, and soundproofing measures have been implemented. There are scuff marks and bloodstains on the landing of the stairs. Along the wall are wooden slates used to pack the artwork in crates. A faint scent of lilac hangs in the air. There are strange wrinkles in the carpet beneath Wrath of Cerberus. It's too soon to assert it was an accident, Lestrade. What are you thinking, Holmes? I need evidence to determine the identity and motive of the possible culprit. I'll need 3 more days. Mr. Clovis objected, but Inspector Lestrade thought it over and agreed to Holmes' proposal. 3 days, no more. The painting is too well known. The police are under intense public pressure. Holmes whispered a few words to the inspector, and Inspector Lestrade left with his constables. Mr. Clovis was deeply dissatisfied with the police further delay in closing the case, storming off angrily. We then bid farewell to the butler. Wait, Mr. Holmes. As we were about to leave, the butler suddenly called out to us. He looked around the room, confirming there was no one else, and whispered, "The truth is, I don't believe in those rumors of a curse. What did you say about the possible motive and culprit? I have some thoughts on that, but as Mr. Clovis was present, I suspect it's related to Mr. Bevel's inheritance." The butlers expressed surprise. "You mentioned that Mr. Bevel had no children. In that case, his inheritance would either be donated or divided among his partners. It's hard to say whether Mr. Bevel's life or death benefited Mr. Clovis more, being his partner." The butler nodded and informed us that he and Mr. Bevel's lawyer would be reading Mr. Bevel's will tomorrow. Unfortunately, only those on the designated list would be able to attend. Who is on the list? The invitees include some distant relatives of Mr. Bevel, Mr. Clovis, and an art dealer who will serve as a witness. An art dealer? Yes, a man who has had frequent dealings with Mr. Bevel and Mr. Clovis in recent years. We have notified him of Mr. Bevel's passing, but he lives in Switzerland and will need some time to arrive. Holmes nodded, but his gaze fell on the unfinished painting nearby. Is this piece something Mr. Bevel was working on? No. This is Mr. Clovis's painting. Mr. Clovis excels at landscaping paintings, while Mr. Bevel was better at painting animals and replicas. Holmes scanned the reception room again and instructed the butler not to let anyone move the painting. He told him we would return the day after the reading of the will and left. The record ends here. Chapter 4, Wrath of Cerberus. The anger and resentment of the deceased linger on. Was the reading of the will yesterday? Did Mr. Clovis inherit everything? As far as I know, no. To everyone's surprise, Mr. Bevel leaves everything except for the exhibited artworks, including the gallery, to Laverne, the butler. The proceeds from the auction of Wrath of Cerberus will be fully donated to a public charity supporting young artists. So what is the purpose of our visit? Just before you arrived, Laverne, the butler of Bevel Manor and the largest beneficiary of Mr. Ethan Bevel's will, came to inform me that the hellhound appeared again last night, and he witnessed it with his own eyes. When we arrived at Bevel Manor, the butler had been waiting for us outside. He led us straight to the cursed hall, which the police had cordoned off. There stood a detective, a handsome young man, and a gentleman in luxurious attire beneath the oil painting. The detective and the young man were likely the Inspector Lestrade mentioned in Dr. Watson's records and Mr. Clovis. As for the other person... Oh, hello, Knight. Hello, Richard. Greetings, everyone. My name's Roy Ramett, chosen witness to Mr. Bevel's last will and testament. Meticulously styled hair and makeup. An elegant boutonniere with a pattern of a flower entwined by a snake. A snake tattoo. A deep green bespoke suit. Holmes observed the witness for a while, then introduced me to the others before turning his attention to the painting. At the same time, I realized Wiggins had disappeared at some point. Mr. Laverne, could you please tell us what happened last night? Certainly, sir. After yesterday's reading of the will, I arranged for all the guests and returned to my room to rest. That's when I discovered a letter under my door bearing the ominous warning from Cerberus. Inspector Lestrade handed the letter to Holmes, who examined it before passing it to me. An ominous warning in the letter reads, "At the midnight hour, upon the stairs of truth, one may break free from the chains of cursed destiny." Okay, I already read that. I suspected this might be related to Mr. Bevel's death. By coincidence, I had inherited the key to the exhibition hall. Jesus Lords, why is that such a hard word right now? So at midnight, I came here only to find His gaze turned towards the painting on the wall. I saw the hellhound spewing flames. At his words, the room shifted its focus to the painting. I also carefully examined the cursed hall and its priceless treasures. There was a faint smell of garlic lingering in the air. The cursed depiction of a three-headed dog in the flames of hell stood ominously, its eyes fixed on the viewer, but there was nothing in the image that suggested spewing flames. Lawn wooden planks, which Dr. Watson also mentioned in his notes, are they awaiting a new buyer? That's odd. Laverne looked at the painting, furrowing his brows. I can't shake the feeling that this painting is different from the one I saw last night. Dahlia, what do you think? At that moment, the maid, Miss Dahlia, appeared at the bottom of the stairs. Hearing the butler, she hesitated before reluctantly climbing up to join us. When she saw the painting, as if she had remembered something, quickly looked away in shock. Yes, it's different. I can't quite say how, but it's definitely different. Were you also here last night, Miss Dahlia? Holmes suddenly turned to Dahlia and asked. I came in when I heard Mr. Laverne scream. Dahlia replied, her words rushed, her eyes darting away from Holmes' piercing gaze. Ah, yes, last night I was so frustrated when I saw the Cerberus breathing fire that I almost fell down the stairs. Thankfully, I managed to grab the railing, or else. I was still in shock at the time, and it was Dahlia who helped me to the lounge after. I couldn't help but notice a discrepancy in his account. Spewing fire? Perhaps I should reconsider. Oh, testimonies. Oh, okay. I guess we're guessing. It's gotta be the testimonies. Oh no, I don't know. Oh, haha, got it. I remember hearing about the curse surrounding this painting. Isn't it supposed to target only the guilty? That was the version that has been circulating in recent years. The previous version was different. Oh.
The Bevel family has long been a noble presence in this swampland, but in recent years, their wealth has surged, largely due to their impressive art collection. However, not so long ago, they were known as a notorious gang of thugs, infamous for their criminal activities. The patriarch of the family was both prideful and cunning, engaging in fraud, extortion, and various other nefarious deeds to amass his fortune. During this time, a painter moved to the swamp with his wife and daughter, seeking inspiration and hoping to sell his artwork. This painter, named Roman, unaware of the Bevel family's dark past, quickly formed a bond with the young patriarch, who seemed to appreciate his talent. The painter regarded the head of the Bevel family as a confidant, never suspecting that he would later get him intoxicated during a dinner and imprison him. In their frantic search for him, Roman's wife and daughter wandered into the swamp, resulting in tragedy. His wife drowned, and his daughter vanished without a trace.
Oh.
From that moment on, the Bevel patriarch kept Roman captive, forcing him to paint exclusively for the family. The young artist endured humiliation and sorrow, filled with resentment as he created his works. After several failed escape attempts, the Bevel family sent hounds to guard him more closely. One fateful night, Roman completed his final work, Wrath of Cerberus. In a desperate act, he hanged himself in the very room where he had been imprisoned. On the painting, he left a haunting message. If I can curse this villainous family, I am willing to offer my soul to the demons in hell.
Mr. Ramit explained. As Mr. Ramit finished his story, the entire room turned to the painting, as if expecting the Hellhound to reveal the truth behind the artist's pain, but one person remained unfazed: Holmes. Mr. Ramit, you seem to know a great deal about the Bevels family history and Roman's final work. I'm not sure if it's just my impression, but I sense a hint of suspicion in Holmes' tone. Indeed, that's how I came to know Mr. Bevel, but as I said, that's unrelated to what happened last night. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Holmes? To my surprise, Holmes chose not to press further. His voice remained calm as he looked upon the scene before him. He turned his attention back to the painting, gently brushing his fingers across the frame. He then took out his magnifying glass and studied the details more closely before leaning in to sniff the canvas. He glanced at his pocket watch and then spoke to the room. Well then, the time has come. Let us adjourn to the reception room. I believe the truth about last night awaits us there. At least the truth something 'cause I pressed too fast. With that, he led the group out of the cursed hall. Before leaving, I briefly considered taking a photograph of the painting. However, the gallery's silent attendant, Mr. Clovis, dressed in bright, impeccable attire, intervened. Forgive me, miss, but a close-up photograph might damage the oil painting. I reluctantly abandoned the idea, but it struck me as odd. The painting was well known, yet all existing photographs of it had been taken from a distance. The truth of the flames. As we returned to the reception room, I noticed that Wiggins had reappeared, seated quietly within. Hi, Wiggins. Wiggins leaned in and whispered something to Holmes, who then exchanged a brief word with Inspector Lestrade. The inspector, clearly displeased, gave Holmes an annoyed look before shaking his head, and with a constable exited the room. After the inspector's departure, Holmes turned to Miss Dahlia. Miss Dahlia, why were you in the cursed hall last night at the precise moment Mr. Laverne was in danger? I heard Mr. Laverne call for help. I came to him. You're lying. This testimony held an obvious inconsistency. Oh, okay, damn. Thought that would be it. Darn. No. Okay. So it has to be this. Nope. Oh my gosh, I actually do not know. Okay, got it. Enclosed space. The exhibition hall is especially soundproofed. It would have been impossible. That's right. I totally forgot about that. It would have been impossible for you to hear anything from the rest of the house. Indeed, I recall Dr. Watson's notes mentioning this very detail. I was merely passing by. At midnight, I couldn't sleep. I had insomnia because I was worried about Mr. Bevel's passing. Yes, I had a bout of insomnia. Miss Dahlia vehemently denied any wrongdoing, her voice shrill, as Inspector Lestrade and the constable returned to the reception room, seemingly carrying something. But Miss Dahlia, you appear much more polished today than when we last met. Oh, she does. Flustered, she persistently avoided Holmes' gaze. Spotless clothing, even crisp as if freshly laundered. These must be new garments. There was something distinctly different about Miss Dahlia today compared to yesterday. Ah! How was that not it? Oh, can I just... Okay. I could have just done that. Okay. Miss Dahlia, have you changed clothes? Indeed, yesterday I saw her wearing that old dress. She said it was to honor the late Mr. Bevel. Yes, yes, to honor him. No, not to honor him, but because that very dress had become stained following the events of last night. At this point, Inspector Lestrade spread the clothing before everyone. It's a black and white maid's dress, somewhat old and wrinkled, and though crumpled and hastily unfolded, fine brown powder. The inspector then placed a small bag of the same powder on the table. This was also found in Miss Dahlia's room, just as Holmes suspected. It's magic phosphorus. Phosphorus. Magic phosphorus? Yes, magic phosphorus is often used in circus acts involving flames. It has an extremely low ignition, pointed, and self-ignites even with mild heat. However, its sticky consistency makes it exceedingly difficult to clean. Why would Miss Dahlia possess a theatrical substance such as this? Oh, I remember now. The cursed hound. How it was stupid. There we go. Oh, her alibi. Frickin'. She once mentioned having a relative who is a magician one who recently arrived in town. I wasn't even thinking about that. I was just thinking about how Mr. Laverne was talking about the flames. That's what I was thinking about. Your memory is remarkable, Miss Celia. And Mr. Laverne, what sort of lighting did you use in the exhibition hall last night? It was a candlestick. So that's how the Hellhound came to spew flames. Oh. Tap the options below to select the vital clues and uncover the truth. I guess. Oh, wait. Oh, was that right? Motive. Unforeseen will. Trap. I actually got that one right! Oh, a trap? Oh. Duh. Dahlia. At that moment, Holmes' conclusion confirmed my own suspicions. No direct contact is needed. The heat from the flame was sufficient to ignite the phosphorus Miss Dahlia had laid out earlier. It's a common trick used in the circus. Do you have anything else to say, Miss Dahlia? So that's why you were afraid to look at the painting just now. It was watching you. It fixes its eyes on only the guilty. Realizing that he had narrowly escaped becoming a victim of murder, Mr. Laverne remained oddly composed. He merely turned to Miss Dahlia and quietly repeated the curse. You're the one who should suffer from the curse, you damn thief, Claritin. Charlatan, something like that. I've worked my whole life and received nothing, yet in less than half a year you've stolen everything that was rightly mine. In a fit of rage, Miss Dahlia lunged at Mr. Laverne, but was swiftly restrained by the constables and escorted from the reception room. Mr. Laverne followed, seeing them out of the manor. After this, in the reception room, only Holmes, Mr. Rammett, Wiggins, Inspector Lestrade, and I remained. Then is she also the one who killed Bevel? Inspector Lestrade asked, voicing the question I had been pondering, though something still felt amiss. Unless specified otherwise, no servant would believe they were to inherit their master's wealth. While Mr. Bevel had no children, he had relatives and partners. It stands to reason that Mr. Bevel's continued life would have benefited Miss Dahlia more than his death. This is what caused Miss Dahlia's fury. Oh, is it because oh, really? I'm thinking way too hard on this. Seeing someone less acquainted with Mr. Bevel inherit everything from him, that means someone else must have killed Mr. Bevel. Holmes nodded in agreement. In truth, her intention was not to kill Mr. Laverne. She only meant to scare him. This explains why she was near the cursed hall, ready to appear when Mr. Laverne called for help. With that, Holmes moved towards the painting by Mr. Clovis, as he had done earlier in the gallery, and leaned in close to smell it. Is there something special about this painting, Mr. Holmes? Dr. Watson's records had mentioned Holmes' particular interest in this painting. Holmes gestured for me to approach. The painting depicts the scenery outside an early spring afternoon, a valley, and a waterfall. Unlike the artwork in the reception room, the colors are used quite vibrant. Miss Celia, observation isn't simply about what one can see. Move closer and smell it. I remembered Holmes' actions in the gallery. He had approached and smelled the painting. Aside from the odor of oil paint, there was another faint fragrance. Lilac? Holmes nodded. To be precise, lilac oil. Every artist has their own preference based on their wealth or habits. Some use turpentine. Its vapors are harsh but evaporate quickly. Lilac oil, on the other hand, is slow to evaporate, less corrosive, and carries a subtle fragrance. It's only natural for someone as meticulous as Mr. Clovis to use lilac oil. Speaking of Mr. Clovis, he seems to have disappeared after we left the gallery. He's preparing the transfer documents for tomorrow's transactions, Mr. Ramett explained. Transfer documents? Yes, in accordance with the usual secret auction process, the highest bidder or their agent will come to collect their price. Well then, shall we visit again tomorrow? Holmes said as he beckoned to Wiggins, preparing to leave. Wait, Holmes, we may have caught one culprit, but you mentioned there's someone else behind Bevel's death. Fear not, Lestrade, for tomorrow the true killer will fall into our hands. To be continued. Wow, how rude. Interesting, I sucked at that. Usually I can do those pretty nicely. But that one, I did not. Oh, we get 5 more. Which is either going to be... It's probably going to be next week. Oh, ha! First one I got is Wiggins. That's funny. Oh, cute. I got Wiggins again. Okay.
Are you just recording or are you streaming?
I'm recording. Well, I didn't get lucky. I knew it was gonna be blue. Oh, I got Clovis. Yeah, I didn't get lucky. Of course I didn't. Ah! I have also gotten Jose. Oh my god!
Huh.
I just got Sherlock Holmes.
Nice.
What? Are you kidding me? I only opened 45. Alright, we are gonna continue the Wrath of Cerberus. I said the curse. That's not what I wanted to press. That is also not what I wanted to press. There you go. Chapter 6, Hidden Flaw. However, before the true killer fell into his hands, another walked willingly into his trap. Me. The following afternoon, I arrived at 221B Baker Street as arranged and was greeted by Holmes and Dr. John Watson, who had returned early. This must be my distant cousin, then. He's so cute. Upon my entrance, Dr. Watson rose, doffed his hat, and greeted me with cordiality. He seemed unperturbed by my disguise, even pleasant, one might say. At the very least, there appears to be some distant familial connection regarding your hair color. Holmes set down his newspaper, raising an eyebrow in mild jest. I beg your pardon, Mr. Holmes, Dr. Watson. It was never my intention to deceive you, but... Holmes waved a hand dismissively. In truth, Miss Watson, oh, forgive me, what should I address you as? That familiar name nearly slipped from my tongue, but after a brief pause, I chose instead to use a name long left unused. Alice. You may call me Alice. Ah, Miss Alice, I must confess, from the very first moment I saw you, I had my suspicions that you were employing a false identity. Your disguise is commendable, yet certain details require refinement. Which details, pray tell, exposed me? You carry a camera and use it with considerable skill. In these times, only women of certain professions, such as journalists, are so familiar with such equipment. You were quite young, dressed in vibrant colors, yet I've never heard John mention having any relatives or acquaintances of such a disposition. I noticed the remnants of cool tar on your shoes. You are a woman of refinement, Miss Alice, not one to wear tar-stained shoes in public. Therefore, I deduced it must have been picked up along the way here. I've heard that the tarmac at Watford Station is currently under construction. And of course, the matter of the Spectrum editorial office is nearby. I know an editor there who mentioned a reporter investigating a money laundering case connected to artwork. As it happens, I possess a few clues on that very matter. So I've read your investigation reports, most intriguing. The author of such accounts must certainly be no fool. Given that John already had other arrangements to attend to, there seemed to be no harm in employing a brilliant temporary assistant. Other arrangements? He's so cute. I turned to Dr. Watson, who nodded and retrieved a small dog from behind him. Yesterday, Holmes sent me a telegram instructing me to procure this little creature from Inspector Hopkins and return to London ahead of schedule. Well then, now that the audience is assembled, it's time to uncover the true villain. Saying this, Mr. Holmes rose and moved towards the door. Dr. Watson, dog in arms, followed. I began to do the same, but Mr. Holmes turned and gestured behind me. Miss Alice, should you have further interest in this case, feel free to take the newspaper on the table. It contains many interesting details. I noticed then that Mr. Holmes had been reading not the current newspaper, but an older one, yesterday's edition, which had been placed in the carriage by Wiggins. Accident Report. Mr. Bevel wins lawsuit and dog attack case. Mr. Bevel reports falling debris from construction. Mr. Bevel injured in carriage overturned. Artist questions Wrath of Cerberus prize manipulation. Numerous reports follow detailing nearly 10 accidents in the past 3 months, all involving Mr. Bevel. Chapter 7, First Step. We arrived at Bevel Manor after nightfall. Inspector Lestrade and Mr. Laverne were already waiting for us. Mr. Laverne informed us that Mr. Ramett had returned to Switzerland while Mr. Clovis had gone ahead to meet the first secret buyer. We did not encounter Mr. Clovis in the gallery, but as soon as we entered, Dr. Watson's dog began barking furiously. Mr. Laverne handed each of us a candle and led us toward the painting Wrath of Cerberus. Dr. Watson, is the dog afraid of the dark? I was quite taken aback by the dog's sudden agitation, especially since it had shown little distress during our bumpy journey. It was a remarkably composed and obedient animal. Certainly not, Miss Alice. Wick is a police dog specially trained by Inspector Hopkins to detect toxic chemicals. This reminded me of a recent news report where police, with the help of a canine, uncovered a ring selling arsenic-laced cosmetics. However, my thoughts were interrupted by a sharp exclamation from a nearby officer who had lost his footing on the stairs and stumbled backwards. Fortunately, Mr. Holmes was right behind him and steadied him. I looked down and saw that 2 steps below where the officer had been standing lay a wooden plank barely an inch lower than the first step, causing his misstep. This wooden plank. It was a small experiment I had requested Mr. Laverne to prepare for our visit. And this, Mr. Holmes gestured to a pile of wood purportedly used for packing the painting, was the murderer's handiwork prepared for Mr. Bevel. I stepped closer to examine the planks. The color is nearly identical to that of the carpet, making it hard to distinguish in the available light. It's slightly lower than the first step, and there's a faint sense of fresh wood shavings clearly newly sawn. Speaking of scents, I recall the report mentioning that the police detected the odor of oil used to mix pigments. Though it evaporates, its scent lingers, clinging to surfaces long after. The murderer, however, failed to realize that the scent had transferred to the weapon. Then the murderer must be... Arrest the manager. Inspector Lestrade immediately signaled an officer to move in, but Mr. Holmes stopped him with a hand. Hold on, Lestrade. Remember what I said? The criminals will walk into the trap themselves. Miss Alice, do you notice any difference between these 2 paintings? Mr. Holmes handed me a page from the Bevel Gallery's catalog. Unlike the one circulated publicly, this copy was clearly a bespoke edition. Dear Mr. Altamont, we are pleased to invite you to Bevel Gallery on the 21st at 7 p.m. Your painting is complete and we are confident you will be pleased with it. We have reserved an exclusive area for you to ensure your visit is undisturbed. Of course. On the back was an invitation for a secret buyer named Altamont to visit the Bevel Gallery before 7 p.m. that night. Wrath of Cerberus. The front bore a description of Wrath of Cerberus in a close-up photo. Do you see the difference between the one on display and the one in this catalog? What stands out to you? I can't say. Do you see the difference between the one on display and the one in this catalog? No. What about this one? Holmes passed me another invitation. Dear Mr. Musgrave, we are pleased to invite you to the Bevel Gallery on the 22nd at 7 p.m. Your painting is complete and we are confident you will be pleased with it. We have reserved an exclusive area for you to ensure your visit is undisturbed. This one was addressed to a secret buyer named Musgrave, set to visit the Bevel Gallery the following night before 7 p.m. The front board description of Wrath of Cerberus and close-up photo. Do you notice any difference? What stands out to you? The head. Their heads are facing different directions. Remarkable observation. Holmes stepped forward and placed a hand gently on the frame. The truth of the curse has now been revealed thanks to Miss Dahlia's impulsiveness. He lifted the painting with a sudden, deliberate motion, and a distant click sounded as Wrath of Cerberus was removed from the wall. It is impossible for even the faintest flicker of magic phosphorus not to leave its mark on the canvas, so when the painting, even after enduring its fiery ordeal during the day, reappeared pristine and untouched, both the startled Mr. Laverne and the guilty Miss Dahlia mistook it for the curse's doing. But you see, there is another possibility beyond the curse itself. Behind the painting, a hidden circular cipher disc appeared before us. Would you care to try, Miss Alice? I suspect this is a challenge more suited to your talents. With pleasure. Okay. Chapter 8, Culprit. As the wall slowly rotated, a new chamber came into view. Oh. Mr. Slovis stood at the center of the secret room, his face pale and frightened. Oh. This is how the Cerberus gazes upon supposed sinners with such accuracy. Mr. Clovis attempted to flee but was quickly seized by Inspector Lestrade, who stood nearby. At that moment, I noticed an exquisitely crafted antique safe behind him. I opened the safe at Holmes' direction, revealing an account ledger and 3 documents inside. A ledger recording the estate's expenses. The account ledger. Bevel Gallery renovation details. Renovation manager Clovis. Date March 18th. Preliminary preparations, on-site survey and measurements, design plan creation and review. One ledger chronicled the estate's expenditures, along with a procurement, oh my goodness, order for renovations and a purchase commission record. The appointed contractor was none other than the gallery curator, and the commissionary began nearly a year ago. 3 documents, each with differing dates of signing. Party A, bequeather, E. Bevel. Party B, recipient, G. Clovis. The parties have entered into the following agreement on a fair and voluntary basis upon sufficient negotiation. Clause 1. Cooperation. Party B shall be responsible for the marketing and sale of the artwork Wrath of Cerberus with the goal of achieving the agreed upon profit. Principal E. Bevel. Trustee. Name redacted and unreadable. Whereas Party A desires to obtain information regarding the painter Roman, Party B agrees to conduct an investigation to gather this information for Party A. The parties hereby enter into this agreement voluntarily after sufficient negotiation. I, E. Bevel, solemnly declare that the previous agreement with Clovis is null and void as of December 24th. So Mr. Clovis arranged this accident to inherit the paintings? No, not just this accident. Based on my investigation, the piece of wood outside was merely one of the weapons. In order to meet the profit target outlined in the agreement, Clovis and Mr. Bevel took it upon themselves to build this unique gallery. They carefully crafted a narrative surrounding the supposed curse of Wrath of Cerberus by swapping out the paintings. To minimize their risk, they refused all journalistic coverage and instead sent custom catalogs to secret buyers. However, this conspiracy provided Clovis with a more direct path to the inheritance he sought. Because secretive work was essential to their plan, and since Mr. Bevel was more adept at painting animals and replicating famous works, he was forced to remain secluded in this enclosed space for long periods. Ooh, not to this one. Oh, there we go. Nice. Okay. To accelerate Bevel's demise and secure the painting sooner, Clovis chose green arsenic-laced wallpaper for the gallery's renovation. This is why Wig began barking the moment he entered the room. Initially, Clovis intended for Bevel to suffer a slow death, but when he discovered the existence of that voided declaration, he realized he could wait no longer. He then orchestrated a series of accidents, all of which failed. The final attempt involved a late-night meeting with Bevel before the painting. He positioned the wooden planks on the stairs, explaining the lingering scent of lilac. This time he succeeded. The arsenic poisoning left Bevel frail and ill, and the previous carriage accident had rendered him physically impaired. In the end, Bevel lost his footing on the elevated steps, falling to his death in this cursed hall. Am I correct in my deductions, Mr. Clovis? So you must be Altamont. At first, I was merely fulfilling a request from a deceased friend investigating whether Wrath of Cerberus was being sold at an inflated price in a suspected act of art laundering. I never anticipated such a revelation. Ha! That treacherous old scoundrel, a lifetime of villainy, and in the end he suddenly attempts to don the mask of virtue. He got what he deserved, I tell you. Clovis flew into a rage, his voice sharp and full of bitterness, curses echoing in the hall as he was escorted away. As his words hung in the air, it was impossible to tell if they were aimed at anyone in particular. Though the case of Bevel Manor seemed to be concluded, as I looked at the remaining paintings in the secret chamber, a nagging feeling lingered. Something was still missing. Wait, 5 paintings? Holmes replied with a knowing smile. I see you've noticed the problem here. Altamont was most likely the first buyer. Even if we count the pieces outside, we still only have 4 paintings. There is another one. The mysterious individual mentioned in the second agreement has already claimed the reward. From my estimations, this likely occurred about 6 months ago when the second agreement was signed. Because of the arsenic poisoning, Mr. Bevel's condition began to deteriorate rapidly. In such cases, particularly with the elderly, one becomes easily susceptible to fatalistic beliefs. Under the influence of these feelings, Bevel must have sought to atone for his role in the curse he set upon Roman, wishing to repay everything to Roman's descendants except for the curse itself. And then this mysterious figure appeared, helping him find a path to redemption. A path to redemption? Do you recall Roy Remet's story? The missing daughter, so she didn't die after all? I believe that to be the case. This mysterious figure succeeded in finding Roman's hair. This is also why the third document was drawn up. And it explains why Clovis spoke of Bevel's sudden virtuous turn. So did he achieve his redemption? Holmes shook his head, gazing at Wrath of Cerberus hanging high on the walls. I believe that is a question none of us can answer. Consulting Detectives Gifts Epilogue. Not long thereafter, I received a detailed dossier from Dr. Watson regarding the money laundering case. According to Dr. Watson, this was Mr. Holmes's way of thanking me for my help in the investigation. Along with the dossier came a family tree, that of Mr. Bevel's butler. Michael Laverne, Jennifer, Laverne, Taylor, Sandra, Steven, Laverne, Roman, Olivia. Laverne was his father's surname, while his mother's name was Isa Roman, an orphan. At the same time, I received word that a new replica of Wrath of Cerberus had surfaced on the black market. My investigations show that the seller was none other than Professor Moriarty. Oh, I didn't think his name would be in there. Wrath of Cerberus, the end. Woohoo! Well, some of them I guessed pretty good on it. Others, I kind of just had to go through each one until I got it right. But that was definitely very interesting. Oh, we got 5 orbs, we got some pictures, and we got a new frame. I might have to put that frame on. Very good story. I wish it was a little longer, but I had a feeling it'd be short. But still very good. I enjoyed it. Look at that. 221B. Beautiful. And then I guess we'll show off the 5. The 5. Dorn. Oh, we got Dahlia though. Ah. Everything all that I have. Awesome. Well, hope you guys enjoyed that. Thank you for watching. See you in the next story. Bye.